Hello and welcome to Meeting at the Crossroads with me, Sarah Daly. This is a short form podcast where business owners and directors share the real stories behind the decisions that changed everything. In each episode, I step with my guest into a moment when they were standing at a professional crossroads, facing growth, exit, reinvention, or uncertainty, and we explore how they chose a path forward. I'm a qualified accountant with first-hand experience starting, growing and selling my own business. And now I work as a transition facilitator and executive coach. Through this podcast, I want to capture the human side of leadership, pressure and change, the kind of insight you only understand in hindsight. These are real conversations about the decisions that shape businesses and careers. So without a further ado, my guest today is someone who has built a career at an intersection of strategy, creativity, and results-driven marketing. Christina has worked with everyone from ambitious solopreneurs right up to global giants like Microsoft and Apple, and everything in between. She's a passionate networker and a former president of Network Ireland's Wicklow branch. But today, we're not just here to talk about her career. We're here to talk about a moment, because in 2020, Christina stood at one of the biggest crossroads of her professional life, choosing to merge with two fellow industry experts, Aidan and Jim, to build something new together called MX3. A decision that was exciting and terrifying in equal measure. Today, we're getting right into that moment. What led to it, what it felt like, and what it taught her. Christina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this podcast. It's actually my first ever podcast I've done, so I'm also like, let's go for it, let's do it. And I have to congratulate you on Meeting at the Crossroads. I think this is a terrific move for you. I love that they're short and sweet, and I'm absolutely honoured that you've asked me to be on it. So thank you so much. And I'm wishing you the very best of luck with the series as you go on.
Oh, thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you as my first guest. So we might as well crack on. Tell us about that moment when you hit the crossroads. Was it sudden or was there a build up to it?
Right. Okay. So firstly, I'm casting my brain right back now to 2020. So it's quite a time ago. So I hope I recall it as well, because it's a bit of a blur at that time. So just to go back a little bit further, I sold my business, The Marketing Lounge, in 2016. So I'm actually this May marks 10 years as a self-employed person. Since I left corporate. So thank you so much. May is it's always that month where I'm like, right, need to, reflect and celebrate, that time and that move. So I suppose that was probably my very first crossroads in terms of making the decision to move from a corporate job into, being self-employed. And I was really proud of what I had built with the Marketing Lounge. So I was in it for, as I say, 4.5, 5 years. And, it was profitable, healthy balance sheet, amazing clients, which I'm proud to say are still with me, a lot of them today. I reached a point, and I think it was a gradual kind of realization that I couldn't do everything. The business had grown to a point, but for me to bring it to the next level, I needed help. And I think I got to a point where, I'd be having the kitchen chats with my husband and my dad, who I would always kind of go to. They're my, two people that I've always confided in when it comes to business. And I'd be saying, I feel I need, more bodies, but, the decision to go out and hire, I was reluctant to do. I just, now don't get me wrong, my sister had actually worked with me for a period of time before moving to Toronto, but I think it would be fair to say that working with family is very different than hiring a stranger in and then getting involved in contracts and salary negotiations. And I just didn't have that in me at that time. So what happened was the merger piece, it was kind of lurking in my head, but I hadn't really done anything about it. I was just I honestly was just continuing just to motor on with the business, but I knew I had to put the big girl pants on again and just start, thinking about where we're going next. So I always kind of described it as we were kind of match made, myself, Aidan and Jim, by our mutual printing vendor that we both work with as
Wow.
companies. So yeah, that's kind of how it first came about. So I think it was back in 2019, and we actually collaborated on a campaign together for a client of theirs. And we got on like a house on fire. And I was liking being able to bounce ideas off other marketing heads, the experience they had. Likewise, they said, God, the energy that you're bringing to the table, the networking, and that additional digital experience in areas of digital that they were looking to get into that I had already been operating in. So that's, I suppose, Sarah, when honestly a lot of coffees were had and conversations and just
Yes.
getting to know each other. There was no agenda as such at that point. It was just kind of getting to know each other's businesses. How are you getting on? How do you approach this? Blah, blah, blah. And then I suppose towards the end of 2019, it was kind of like, I think it was Aidan that made that move of, would you be interested in potentially coming together with us to make
Yes.
something bigger? And to be honest with you, the gut was saying yes. But I think you touched on
Oh,
it in your question of, that fear. And there was absolute fear. This was unknown territory. I had honestly seen mergers that had gone wrong quite close to me. So
okay.
that was in my head and playing out. I suppose I'm a bit of a control freak. So I had to really go, okay, I'm going to have to relinquish some of that, and am I comfortable to do
Yes.
that? Am I comfortable to let go of my baby, my first baby, my brand, the marketing lounge that I was so passionate about building and I'd done on my own? And quite honestly, there was a lot of toing and froing in that decision
Okay.
and trying to figure out, is this the right move? And I suppose what I kept going back to was that why, why
Okay.
I feel that this needs to happen. And it goes back to what I said initially of I was at that point of growth and I really was reaching that tipping point that I couldn't,
Yes.
go much further by myself. You kind of come to that realization that
Mm.
there's a power in numbers, you know?
There is, but it's very interesting how at the start you were saying you had it in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
So when it was mentioned, I get the sense there was both fear and excitement.
Yeah.
And so, how long did it take you from the time it was mentioned to you doing the merger? And
Oh,
was the feelings up and down all the time? How did it actually come to the crunch going, yes, this is the right choice?
so in hindsight's a great thing. I should have nearly gone and just done it, within 2 to 3 months with the guys from that moment of initially feeling it. But then COVID hit in the February,
Okay,
and then
that's right.
I was in the middle of buying my first house with my husband. So the advice to me was basically, don't budge, don't do anything with your business, stay as you are and just keep the head down. So in fairness, Aidan and Jim were so supportive to me at that time. They were ready to kind of go, but I was there going, look, I can't really budge here. And I suppose having that extra time, in a way, that's when the fear creeps in again and the negative thoughts of, oh God, should I do this or will I just go by myself? But then at the same time, I was there and I was just, honestly, it's a bit of a blur those months because I just, had to just keep going with the business, keep, I suppose the head down. Unfortunately, two of my clients, within the minute that the lockdown was announced, they were gone. And, that was
Mhm.
heartbreaking for them. It was also very scary as a business owner because you're going, Christ, where is this all going to go?
Hear you?
It was just a lot. It's honestly, I often say to my husband, that feels like a fever dream nearly, Sarah. Did that actually
Yeah.
happen? So honestly, I kept in touch with the guys, but I kind of had to park it for a couple of months and just keep, as I say, keep the head down, get the mortgage over the line, make sure that my clients that I was working with, including yourself that came on board that
Yes.
year, if you remember,
Yeah.
and just make sure I'm delivering the best I can deliver, and just we'll revisit, we'll come back. So it
Back.
was probably around trying to think of, I think it was the summer months. So we got our house in July, and then it was I think August that we revisited the whole thing, came back together, and we had been staying in touch, but it was just, okay, are we going to move on this or not? And that's when I said, right, do you know what? Feel the fear, do it anyway. And, my attitude, and I had this attitude when I was going into being self-employed, if it doesn't work, fair enough. I'll figure something out. And likewise with the guys, but I'll regret it more if I don't try this and put my foot forward. Ultimately, as you just touched on, there was great excitement, and I
Excellent.
remember sitting in the car going, yeah, like I really want to do this. I really do want to do this. And what I did was we decided mutually, because we had discussions about would we name it the Marketing Lounge or they were O'Connor and Kelly. And then we said, you know what, let's part those and actually come up with something new and just start a clean slate.
Oh,
And for me, mentally, I think it was nice because I was there kind of going, okay, I created that business. I'm really proud of where it got to, but now it's time for a new chapter. And that was a great moment. That was a beautiful moment. And I must admit, I will always say this to my clients, celebrate the little wins. And I did that. I went
yes.
out and bought a bag because I'm obsessed with bags. I brought them in my
Okay.
brand colours, black and gold of the Marketing Lounge. And that signified that moment
Wow.
in time and moving on. It's important to say as well, Sarah, that a key reason also for moving into the merger was that I wanted to bring more value to my clients. And I knew that the
Hmm.
experience Aidan and Jim had was it was phenomenal. That, agency experience. Jim had worked, he had led the Ryder Cup in terms of sponsorship. There's so much there that I was like, I'm going to learn so much here from a marketing side, from a business operation side, as well as bringing my knowledge and expertise and our combined networks together. And there's a real power in numbers. One of the fears always was, oh my goodness, what are my clients going to say? What are their clients going to say? Are they going to be supportive? Are they going to be scared away from this move? Because you're moving from,
Yes.
one to many, you're changing your brand, everything. Honestly, that was a mental barrier for me for a while.
Okay.
But once I actually got out there and I announced it, and we announced it collectively, oh my goodness, the support was unbelievable. And I sat there going,
Yeah.
what was I worrying about? You know?
I think people forget when you're in a B2B industry that other businesses have gone through something or may not have gone through something or may be thinking about something. So for someone to take a big step, I think as a business owner, you go, that is a big step. Well done.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that business owners have either lived it or thinking about it, but to see others do it, it just adds to it. And it's wonderful to get to know someone who's gone through it, to be able to go back and speak to them. But what you've highlighted is no matter what transition you go through, life is still living.
Yeah.
So outside of business, there is life elements that's going to slow stuff down or push things forward. And we have to acknowledge that. And that's something I didn't think about until you brought it up. And it was very, very interesting. So I'd like to know now, what was it like after making the decision and the merger happened? Was it exactly what you expected, or did anything major change?
So it was the best move I've ever made, from our clients and the value we can offer, three heads better than one, being able to collaborate and share ideas, brainstorm ideas, and bring them forward to our clients has just been phenomenal. And also with the guys, they had just licensed out the CMS platform to build websites on, easy sites. So that was a huge attraction for me as well, to be able to get in there, because previous to that, I would have been working with clients with another partner and building on WordPress, which is great, but it took time. So with this platform, we're able to create websites at a much shorter rate, time spent. It's, our clients always say how easy it is to use. And there's a digital transformation piece in that they're also bolting on other services. So now we can offer SEO, content management. So, that's been massive, to be able to have that platform there and to be able to drive that and bring it to our clients. We get on great. It's lovely to be able to, pick up the phone to your business partners and have that support. And, they'll ring me and say, can I bounce something off you? And likewise, with me ringing them. We, from day one, we always got on very well. There was always that synergy there. And look, people would say, oh, there's an age difference with you. And I say, I don't see that. And they don't see that either. Yeah. It's, about what we bring together. And, ultimately we have a shared value set. And what Jim would always say is what you see is what you get with us. And that's absolutely true. And I think that's a real reason as well why our clients have been with us for as long as they have, and they stay, yes. And because we are who we are, we'll go above and beyond to deliver. And I think, bringing us together has just made us stronger. From a business point of view as well, there's no doubt about it, especially coming through those uncertain times with COVID, and that there's a power in bringing your resources together, building on that balance sheet and saying, right, we've a bit more to play with. We can maybe, pull ourselves out there more and be strategic about how we market ourselves or what we might support and invest in. So, that has been hugely beneficial as well. And it's important to say that, because that is the reality of it as well. The other side as well is, again, going on to a personal element. And this is a piece of advice I would give to people who might be in this space, be very open about everything, lay it all out on the table. I was very open with the guys, and this is a vulnerable place to be, but I was open with them saying, I want to start a family in the next, at the time, the next 5 years. So I said, that will mean that I'll have to, stand back a little bit, and are you guys comfortable with that and supporting? And they were just so supportive. And I've just welcomed my little boy there in September. And honestly, to have that ecosystem around me and to know that clients there's been a continuity there, business continuity. Yes. There's not been affected. Everything has just ran smoothly. That's been amazing, And likewise with the guys, if they have to step away, where I'm here and so on, that we can support there. So that's been incredible.
Sounds like an absolute fantastic decision. Mm-hmm. If there was someone listening to this and they're standing at a similar crossroads, what would you say to them today?
Oh my goodness. So I would say, write down your why. In those moments of fear or, where you're thinking, God, am I doing the right thing? Go back to that why. Trust your gut feeling. You're going to get advice from different people, but at the end of the day, so I reached out to my accountant, I confided in my dad, my husband, but ultimately the buck stopped with me. The buck stopped with the guys, yes. As in, do they want to merge with me? So, trust your gut feeling on it. If possible, if it does feel right, try and not let it drag out, make a decision, get on with it, do it. If I hadn't have been in that situation of COVID and buying a house, I would have shortened that time frame to transition greatly. And I think, what I said there a few moments ago about just be upfront and honest with these people who are potentially going to be your business partners. Say where you're coming from a business point of view, from a personal point of view. Likewise, they shared with me what their aspirations were from a personal level and a business level. So we all went into this knowing exactly what we want to get from it.
Christina, thank you so much for giving me your time today. And I hope everything goes well in the couple of months, and congratulations on your lovely little boy. And I'm going to leave it there, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Sarah. And as I said, best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meeting at the Crossroads. Every story we share is a reminder that the decisions we make, especially the hard ones, shape who we become as leaders and human beings. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love you to follow along or share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sarah Daly. Thank you for being here. And until next time, remember, it's not if you reach the crossroads, it's when. I hope you find clarity at yours. You can find me on LinkedIn as Sarah Daly, on Instagram at Sarah Daly Coaching, or my website, sarahdaly.com. This is Meeting at the Crossroads. Come join me.